Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, that song made me happy. This morning's session made me so happy. It's so nice to see you. I just want to start. I'm Hali Lee, and I just want to start off by just saying congratulations to Sadi and Ilyasa and Alyssa and the entire Philanthropy Together team. It's amazing what you guys have done this year, truly making reality out of what was just a dream not that long ago. So congratulations. This morning's session was amazing. Just fills my heart. Welcome to this conversation. I wish I could see all of you, but we're doing it in this webinar style, so I can't see you. So I urge you to be active in the chat. That's one of the things that I'll get to do as moderator. I'm not going to read everyone's bios because it would just take up too much time, and the people on this panel are so amazing. But very quickly, you're going to hear from this session, by the way, it's called Giving Circles Are Here to Stay, Honoring the Legacy of Collective Giving. And I am joined by this powerhouse team of Alice Y. Home from Giving 2 Cents, which was part of the AAPI Giving Circle Network when that existed, as was mine. Ron Lawrence from the Sankofa Fund, which is part of the Community Investment Network. Sondra Shaw-Hardy from Women Giving Circles International, and Maria Alvarez from the San Francisco Latina Giving Circle, which is part of the amazing Latino Giving Circle Network. And again, my name is Hali. I'm the founder of the Asian Women Giving Circle, which is a proud member of the Community Investment Network, as well as Philanos, which is a network of women's giving circles across the country. So we only have 50 minutes. It's really not enough time. Please go to the forum and read about the folks on this panel. And again, please be active in the chat because we're going to try to save at least 10 minutes, hopefully 15, for questions and comments at the end. So let's start it off. The goals for today are really to connect you in this audience with some folks who might be new to the Giving Circle movement and to connect you with some people who have been doing this for a while. And it's going to be a chance for you to hear from the folks on the panel to their reflections on what got them started in this collective giving work, and also what some of their hopes and dreams are for the future of collective giving around the world. And just you'll get a chance to see some of the wonderful array of collective giving and giving circles out there. So we're going to start, and Alice, I'm going to kick it to you first, and then we're going to go around. Tell us about the origin story of your giving circle, Alice, and on whose shoulders you stand as you do this work rooted in community and culture.
Thank you, Hali. I'm excited to be here with everybody. The shoulders I stand on are immigrants and my parents who are immigrants. I come from an immigrant family, Chinese American, and the way that they supported each other were folks from your home village will come to the States and you start a surname association. So that's how I was taught of like how you help your own. And the particular giving circle that I co-founded is called Beyond 2 Cents. It's an LGBTQ API giving circle. And the reason why it's named Beyond 2 Cents is because for every $100, less than 2 cents went to AAPI LGBTQ communities. For API communities writ large, for every $100, only 20 cents goes to AAPI communities and issues, and that's a problem. So for me, I started Beyond 2 Cents because of APIP, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in Philanthropy. They had a 5-year campaign to grow 50 giving circles, and that statistic of how little money goes to API communities inspired me to start this group, and it helped inspire other people to start giving circles because we felt like it's a part of our community and culture already. Let's create a way, a platform for this to go beyond just your small group. So that's who I am, and that's the origin. And I must admit that it's about community coming together to support our own.
Thank you, Alice. Maria, would you please share the story that I heard a little bit about your dad and his dad and where you learned how to be generous and on whose shoulders you stand upon?
Yes, well, thank you, Hali, and thank you everyone for joining this session. I'm gonna start saying that I learned all about being generous and giving back and sharing my blessings from my dad, as you said, Hali, and my grandma on the paternal side. Like the two of them were helping every single person that came their way. And I saw that since I was, a little girl. I absorbed that. And I've been just doing that my whole life. I am one of the founders of the San Francisco Latina Giving Circle, and it was the first circle of the Latino Giving Circle Network. That started back in 2012, and Sarah Lomelin was behind that. So Sarah pitched the idea to me, and I was like, look, this sounds so great. It resonated to me when I heard just the possibility of knowing where my donations or dollars were going to be, how those donations were going to be used. And I knew, because I work in the nonprofit sector, what a small percentage goes to Latino-led grassroots nonprofits. And I said, you know what? No, I want to change that, and I want to make my contribution. And that's how I said, really quickly, I want to join. And we started the movement, and now we're more than 500 people across the state here in California. I'm an entrepreneur, as I said, with this, I think I'm a mission-driven person with a practical mind. So I see the value of the Latino Giving Circle, how it's been growing, helping our grassroots organization. For me, what started as a, let's join forces and make this happen because we need to step up and help. Now it's a lifetime commitment. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. That's what I want to, say at the beginning of this conversation.
Thank you, Maria. I totally agree. I have a feeling all of us on this panel are going to be doing this for the rest of our lives, and hopefully joining with some of you to do good work as well. Sondra, tell us about your story. People Magazine is my hint to the audience.
Well, I was on an airplane, and I think that's where I read this article in People Magazine, either there or in the dentist's office, I don't know. But anyway, there was an article in the magazine back in about 88. And I'm sorry, no, I have the wrong date, in 98. And it was this woman, her name is Colleen Willoughby, and many of you may know her. She's from Seattle. And she and two of her friends were in the kitchen, and they were going like that. They were so happy because they had established this women's foundation in the Seattle Community Foundation. And so I read about what they did, and I thought, well, I'm president of our Women's Resource Center in Traverse City, Michigan. And of course, like every organization, we're looking to make money. And I thought, that's a good idea. That should work. And so I called Colleen, and she gave me some really good hints, like start your giving circle with just 4 or 5 people, get everything together before you start out asking people to join. Know that grant making is going to be the toughest thing that you do, and see if you can get everybody in the grant committee, because that's where they really learn. So anyway, I started talking about this with people I know, and it was the easiest fundraising I've ever done, because they just thought it was a really great idea. And so we ended up starting the 3-generation Circle of Women Givers, and gave out our first grant in 2000. We were in operation for 10 years, raised $500,000. It was $1,000 to join. And unfortunately, there was a change in the administration there. And so it's no longer around, which I feel very badly about. But there were only about 5 giving circles at that time, really. And when you see what's happened over the last 10 years, it's just amazing. As far as whose shoulders did I stand on? Well, certainly Colleen's. And also in 1988, I met a woman named Martha Taylor from University of Wisconsin-Madison. And she was she and I are now very, very dear friends. We've worked together all these years, helping to start with others the women's philanthropy movement. But she came up to me at a fundraising meeting, and she said, I've been asked to write an article about career women and their giving. And I thought, women giving? No, because I had only raised money for political candidates, and none of them were women, of course, back in the late 80s. And so I thought that sounded interesting. So we had a couple of focus groups when we came up with the 6 C's of women's giving. Women give to create, change, connect, commit, listen to me, collaborate, and have fun, celebrate. So I stand on Martha's shoulders because we've been together for all these years. We formed what is now the Women's Philanthropy Institute, and I've been very fortunate.
Thank you, Sondra. You know, I bet many people on this call know Mario Luque. He's a dear friend of mine, and I adore him. And I was part of a group he did a little while ago about thinking about who we're grateful to, like activists who came before us, or people who we learned organizing from, people who we learned skills, generosity from. And it was such a nice thing to do, because the person I thought of, I hadn't thought of in 20 years, but it was just so nice to think of Erica Fox, who was my boss at Planned Parenthood in the Midwest. And if you want to share anything in the chat about someone whose shoulders you stand on, and think about them today and thank them in your head, or if in person, if you're able to. I think it's just such a nice thing for us to do, who are in doing equity and justice oriented work. So I thank Mario, if he's out there, wherever he is. I talked to him. All right, Ron, please share, set the scene for us. Pittsburgh, what was happening in your town when you started your giving circle, and on whose shoulders do you stand?
Yes, my name is Ron Lawrence. I'm a retired marketing executive and engineer from Bombardier Company, and it's been some time now. But I'm in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh has been going through a transformation for the last 20 years. It all started in 1980 when the steel mills started disappearing, and so this is a steel town, as you know, Pittsburgh. But the steel mill started shutting down, and of course, when that happened, we lost a lot of our economic backbone. There were 200,000 people caught in layoffs and being out of their jobs at that time. And of course, the African American community was totally decimated once that happened. We had an average salary that was pretty high in compared to the rest of the country, because we were part of the Teamsters Union in here. And so to endure all that, once the steel mill started shutting down, and our community, of course, started going down. And we thought a group of us came together in around 2004 and 2005, and we started talking about forming a giving circle to help shore up some of the institutions that we had in our community that were falling down. We finally came together and formed a collective group, about 17 of us, in 2007. That was our formal start of our giving. And since that time, we've been thriving, and we give away about 4 or 5 grants every year to different local groups in our community. Those groups, we have about 105 nonprofits in the Pittsburgh area, Black nonprofits I'm speaking of. There are over 5,000 total nonprofits in the area, but only 105 are African American. So we support those 105, at least a portion of them, as we give our grants out. We give away 3 or 4 grants every year, different groups. And we've been lucky to get our program going and keeping it going strong. I also was able to form a grant program within one of our Black foundations. We started a Black foundation here in Pittsburgh. It's called the Poise Foundation. And that foundation was started by one of my mentors, and one whose shoulders I stand on. His name was Bernard Jones. So he's one of my great heroes. My dad was one of my great heroes. These guys all came through times were very difficult and tough. I grew up in the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. And that was, coming out of, my family was coming out of slavery on my grandmother's side. My grandfather was from New Orleans. So we had a community of folks who just took care of each other. And that was my background for understanding what a community was all about and how do you take care of a community. So I'm coming from a group of folks who really thought about how we come together and get to take care of our communities. So that's what we've been doing here in Pittsburgh. And I started a fund in the Poise Foundation, a $50,000 fund now. It started off at about $25,000. It's about $50,000 now, just by myself. And my wife and I help contribute to different organizations and different things happening in the city to keep our community uplifted and to keep it moving ahead. So this whole thing about philanthropy and what we can do as a group is exciting to me. When we came together as 17 people back in 2007, we all agreed that we needed to inspire, unite our community, and get them to a point where they could understand what it took to take care of our local needs and necessities in our different neighborhoods. And really that's a key item for us making it work for all of our communities across the country. So I'm excited about being on this panel today, about what we're doing here in Pittsburgh to try and move our communities forward. It's such a necessity now. I'm just appalled at what we're going through right now with our democracy. It's really it's really bearing down on me pretty heavily to see the things that's happening in the country right now.
Yeah.
And it's devastating. So anyway, I just wanted to present that. The shoulders I stand on is my dad. Again, people like Paul, statesman here in the United States, Bernard Jones, who started the Poise Foundation here in Pittsburgh, and a guy named Sidney Russian, who was my original mentor at my high school in Gulfport, Mississippi. He actually got me started in this whole concept of helping your community, helping move things forward. And those are the shoulders that really got me going and have me staying on the course right now, because we got to stay the course at this
Totally.
point.
Thank you, Ron.
So devastating right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love reading some of your comments in the chat. Thank you for posting people on whose shoulders you stand, people who you learned something from, someone who you learned your organizing skills, your activism skills, your fundraising skills, your generosity skills. That keep them coming. And I also heard from Alice and also Ron, like some of our cultural, like all of us come from cultures of generosity. All of us come from cultures of giving. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about that in the chat. Like in my giving circle was inspired partly by the idea of a Korean ge, which is kind of like a shared savings circle where people, families, anyone could just pull their money and use it for whatever you needed. And in this case, we decided to turn that pooled money towards something charitable. And you heard Alice talk about her family origins with the family surname associations that were prevalent in lots of Chinatowns and Chinese American communities across the country, and a little bit from Maria about her parents and grandparents' generation. So please share. And Susu's, yes, thank you, Toby. I see you in the chat. Share some cultural traditions that you might come from, because I think that'll be fun for everyone to read about. And then I'm going to take a tiny bit of moderator's privilege and ask the panel for a quick go around, riffing on what Alice and Maya Iwata chatted about. If you can think of something that your giving circle has done that was just like fun and community building and bonding, take a minute to think about it. And we're just going to do a really quick lightning round of our panel. I'll go first to give you a minute to think. We have something called a sip, shop, swap at my giving circle, which is a combination of wine tasting and a stoop sale. I'm from Brooklyn, so we have stoop sales in my neighborhood. It's kind of like a garage sale maybe in other parts of the country, and we turn it into an impromptu, fun, casual, small fundraiser. And it's become kind of a thing. There have been fights over handbags. Madeline Lamore is on the chat. She was there for a party to a fight over a handbag years ago. Madeline, I'm outing you. So if you have a story from your giving circle to share that was fun and bonding, Maria, you go first, and then Alice, then Ron, then Sondra. So Maria, please share.
Yes, look, besides all the wine, right, through almost 10 years together, and the endless, conversations with my fellow giving circle friends, we, right before the pandemic started last year, we went out to Santa Rosa, which is north of San Francisco, an hour north, and we were just, helping with some political support before the campaign, during the campaign, just to knock the doors and ask people to vote. And we were doing that, which was really fun, was that we were able to bring our kids with us. And,
Nice.
That is wonderful, because many of us, we have kids, including myself. And, part of, my greatest joys of this experience in the Giving Circle is to see my boys, being part of this. So it was amazing, lovely, one of those special memories with my kids.
Love it. So I heard wine, politics, kids, food.
Yeah.
All right.
Whole
I already
family.
forgot what order we're going in. Who's got an idea? Alice or Sondra? Okay, Alice, you're up.
Thank you. And a lot of APIP's giving circles that are Asian American and Pacific Islander, food plays a heavy role in your giving circle, food and fun. And I was a part of the LA API giving circle, and we had a dumpling party where we would come make dumplings together. Other people brought in food. There's always like, you do from this letter goes the appetizers, from this letter, that letter, you bring the main and all that. And that's where we did the grant making. So that's where we had a dumpling party. People would talk about, then there was like a little section where it's all about, here are the grants that we want to give. The grant committee sort of shared it all out to us. We all voted, and then we went back to eating. So for us, the dumpling party was very much a part of the whole process. And I think we talk about community. Community is made up of people. So these are your friends. These are people who become your friends. They become, like lifelong friends. And you bond over food, you bond over drink, and then you do good at the same time. So the dumpling party is an annual thing that this group still does. And for the Beyond 2 Cents, a lot of it is also around food, having a retreat, bringing food together. We'd love to tell you more about the kinds of food, but I'll pass it on to others.
That's great. Food. Okay, Sondra or Ron, you have a story to share, something bonding and fun that you've done.
Yeah, well, it's about food too. I had, for a book that I was writing, I had interviewed a woman, and I was trying to figure out her name, but I can't remember it now. And I think her organization was called Lemonade, making lemonade out of lemons or something. But she was a doctor, and she was at the homeless shelters, and she started giving out money to the people there, and her husband said something to her. And so what she decided to do was have this dinner once a month, and then everybody would bring the same amount of money that they would have spent had they gone out to dinner. Well, again, I thought that was a great idea. So I talked to a friend of mine in Traverse City, and we started Maidens, and it's small m, capital ADE, Maidens of Michigan. And so we meet twice a year, and she lives at the bottom of one of our bays in a lovely house. And so we have usually about 50 people there, and they bring a check for $100 or whatever they want. And then we have a committee, and we ask the community organizations to send us stories of women who need a hand up. And so we've given out thousands and thousands of dollars, and we have a whole lot of fun doing it. And of course, there's some wine there too.
Okay, Ron, how about you, sir?
Oh, yeah. Well, we just do some small here in Pittsburgh. We do some small things here. We basically hold some just regular meetings, about twice a year, really. Just trying to invite different organizations and groups in to talk about and think about starting and forming giving circles. And we just do that in a very casual atmosphere. Everybody has an input, but it's just fun. We just have fun with it.
You're cutting out a tiny
the
bit.
idea behind giving attitude.
Got it. Thank you. And that reminds me something you said, Ron. One of the women that we had the privilege of funding a few years ago, she called the Asian Women Giving Circle. She felt like it was a group of aunties cheering her on from the sidelines. Yeah. And I love that, because I think one of the things that you're going to hear over the course of our time together at We Give Summit is that a lot of giving circles are pretty close to, like, we're the same people, like we're in the same community as the people that we fund. And that kind of closeness is something special, and it's not common in philanthropy. And I think it's one of the great strengths that those of us in this collective giving movement have just really celebrated and cherish. All right, so we're going to do another round. And this is kind of a magic wand question for our panelists. Each of us has been collectively giving for over 10 years. Dream a little bit about what the next 10 years might bring. I invite you to dream micro or macro. Like Ron and I were riffing about, like, I think giving circles could literally save our democracy, and I'm not kidding. How do you think this plays forward? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? What are your hopes and dreams and visions for this burgeoning field? Alice, I'm going to ask you to start us off again.
Thank you for talking about legacy, because earlier the panelists all talked about whose shoulder we stand on, and those are generations before us. And I really think about the generations after. I don't have children, but it doesn't mean that I don't care about the world. And for me, it's about, I might not benefit from the work that I do now around social justice, but 7 generations out, they will. And I feel as if giving circles are part of that, because foundations are not just about, or philanthropy isn't just about foundations. It's, the majority of the money comes from individuals, and we haven't really harnessed that power. So for me, I'm hoping that we could think about, everybody thinks of themselves as a philanthropist, that you can give your time, your talent, your treasure, and it's an individual thing, but it's for the collective good. And I'm hoping that with giving circles, people can redefine what a philanthropist is. You don't have to be Bill Gates. You don't have to be, Jeff Bezos doesn't even give money a lot out. So you don't have to be Warren Buffett. You don't have to be Mackenzie Scott. You can be who you are, and you're a philanthropist because you're giving your time, your talent, your treasure. And that combined, like the pooling of funds, giving circles are a platform for that to happen, because communities are hurting right now. We can't have government save us. We can't have philanthropy to save us. It's going to be the people, and that has always been the case. So for me, it's redefining who a philanthropist is and what you do, because small amounts of money pulled together can make great change.
Absolutely. Thank you. Great
Love
point.
that.
Great point.
Totally. Okay, Sondra, let's hear from you, please.
Well, 3 years ago, I started an organization called Women's Giving Circles International. And the pandemic kind of set us back, but we're moving forward really well now. And so my idea is that I would like to have all of the new giving circles that are formed in the US and abroad to think about 3 of the sustainable development goals that I think something like 138 countries have adopted. They were started in the United Nations, and they're about gender equity, quality education, and quality healthcare. Those are 3 of the top 5. And so what if, because a lot of giving circles have an endowment, and a number of them set aside money for administration. So what if a portion of the money was set aside from each giving circle, and let's say 10%. It used to be that 10% of our investments were abroad. So I used to say, ask people to do it that way, but I don't think you can probably see a difference anymore in what's a US company and what's a French company. But anyway, so what if that money was set aside? Let's say the first year you could choose one of the three. And then maybe 3 years later, when there are hundreds and thousands of giving circles in the US and internationally, what if they decided and focused on one? Just think of the money. I mean, if you think of $1.2 billion has been reported to have been raised in the 20 years that giving circles in the US have been in. And think of the amount of money, and money is power. And those are issues that women care about. So that's my dream and my passion.
Thank you. And you're talking about collectivizing the collectivizers, right? So what would
Right.
happen if all of us in collective giving decided to collect like macro and gave almost like a tithing, like, some of us grew up in religious traditions where there was tithing. You're suggesting something like that. It sounds like
Right.
10% of what each of our circles raises, whether it's $1,000 or $100,000 towards an SDGI goal. That's a cool idea. Maria, how about you? What's your hopes and dreams for this burgeoning field of collective giving?
I have many dreams.
Let's hear them.
Many, but let me just try to summarize one, the big one that I have. I really want the Giving Circle movement to democratize philanthropy. To Ali's point, right? We are all philanthropists, but we need to learn and empower ourselves to say, yes, I am a philanthropist and I don't need to have, many millions of dollars to give. I think that we cannot continue depending on outsiders to come and tell us what our communities need, because we know best. We know what our community needs and what their pain points are. We know that really well. I think giving circles are a powerful force, and we can have a huge impact by sharing our financial resources, our talents, our networks. And when I think about the future, I always keep thinking, I live here now in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I do a lot of work with families and kids. 50% of the children in the US today are kids of color. And if you look into foundations and the decision makers in the philanthropic sector, many of them don't belong to these communities. They don't know what the reality is, what the pain points are, what their needs are. And my hope is that this Giving Circle movement, becomes into a sort of revolution that, pushes the philanthropic sector forward to be more democratic, to be more diverse, and more in tune to the real needs of our communities, especially underserved communities, because that's where we really need to invest. And I want just to wrap up saying to the people that are participating today, if you are not part of a Giving Circle yet, please join one or start one, because look, we have talked about giving and having fun and the wine and the dumplings and all that. But what we haven't mentioned is the fulfillment that you will feel in your heart when you belong to a Giving Circle. And that's something that you need to experience, because there are no words to describe that. So just keep that in mind. And I hope that you join this movement, because together we'll be able to make a huge impact in the US and around the world.
Kara here. I'm cheersing you from across the country with my We Give mug, which is, of course, there we go. Thank you for the gorgeous swag. And just plugging Philanthropy Together's Launchpad for You and Launchpad for Hosts. This didn't exist, oh my gosh, until this year. There's like actually a class you can take, and it's quite fun. It's not a huge lift, tons of resources, thanks to Isis's big brain, about how you can start a giving circle. And it's amazing. And I send people to it all the time, and it's fantastic. All right, Ron, let's hear from you. Hopes and dreams for collective giving.
Hopes and dreams. Everything is based on hopes and dreams, especially in our community. We started the 100 Black Men in 1986. And we were one of the first foundations to form the group. We now have 100 chapters across the country. And
Wow.
our focus is really on the areas that's most devastating our community: education, economic development, health and wellness, and making sure we build our culture and our leadership skills to take us into the future. That's been a big impact for us in terms of trying to move this ahead. And one of the things is right now we're in the middle, in our local chapter here in Pittsburgh, we have our kids going through economic empowerment courses right now. We have to make our people aware of what it's going to take to sustain them going into the future and to further into the future. Right now, African Americans has the lowest net worth of any group in this country at this point in time. Our average net worth is something like $6,000, which is really bad in this country at this time. So we really try to empower our people to develop the economy that they need to sustain all of our communities. And that's what our focus has been on here in Pittsburgh. And we meet with our kids every year, all year long, from the start of school time until the end of school, which is 37 weeks. And we go through our 4 for the Future impact areas, like I said, education, health and wellness, culture, and the other things of making sure that we get the leadership we need to make it happen. So for me, it's all about getting our folks ready to sustain themselves in the future as we go forward.
Thank you. I want to encourage people to drop questions and comments in the chat. I'm going to pick one up now that was dropped by Dr. Julie DeBari about the role of government. And I'm going to quote Abby again. She spoke this morning. She's a dear friend of mine. I count like I was a board member at the New York Women's Foundation for 6 years, and that's where I learned about philanthropy. I'd been an executive director a couple times of nonprofits, and I learned a lot about the power of individuals, in that case, women, coming together around kitchen tables all across the city to raise money and do good to support women and girls in the city. However, as Abby said this morning, philanthropy is a poor substitute for structural change. And
Yeah.
I personally, just this is me, I'm not representing any organization or anything. I personally believe in government. And there is, when we're talking about systemic wealth inequality and racial justice and a lot, all the things that climate change. I mean, government is by far the biggest lever that we can pull. And philanthropy plays a role also, though, right? Like philanthropy is a place that we can come together in a civic square to learn, to experiment, to be together, to exercise our civic engagement muscles. So I'm personally not advocating philanthropy as a substitute for big government. I'm just saying that it is one of the levers, among the levers that we can pull. And if we can pull it collectively, that we can be stronger than the sum of our parts individually. I wonder if any of you, maybe Alice, would like to speak about this question that DeBari raised in the chat about the role of government and how philanthropy can support, augment, be among the levers that we pull to bring about the change that we want to see in the world.
Hali, can you tell us about Giving Circle as a PAC for candidates?
I'd be very happy to share it. There's going to be a session later in the We Give Summit. Melissa Walker, who runs the Giving Circle program at Future Now Fund. It's an organization that's all about political giving circles to flip state legislatures across the country. I joined my first political giving circle soon after the presidential election of 2016. I'd be very happy to talk about that with anyone who's interested. Maybe text me or reach out to me. But let's look at this question here because we're on this session right now and Dr. DeBari had a question. So I wonder if any of you panelists would like to comment about this question of government and the intersection or the interplay of government and policy and the philanthropic sector.
Well, I can say something about the fact that when you get women involved in giving circles, it leads to advocacy, because they're in a giving circle because they want to change things. And so as they learn more about their community and about the organizations, they become advocates, and then that advocacy oftentimes goes to the state legislature. So they take the issues that they care about to their legislators to bring about action at that governmental level. So I think, you know, there's a crossover there.
Gotcha.
Holly, thank
Alice?
you, and thank you to the person who wrote the question, because there's just so many different, what Hali sort of talked about with the different layers, right? So the layers of change can happen on an individual and interpersonal layer, and then there's the institutional and structural, right? And so government has a role with those things, philanthropy has a role, there's an ecosystem that can happen. So when you bring together and you pull people together to create a giving circle, you're already creating a space for education amongst that giving circle. And then what something like the We Give Summit is brings together other giving circles, so that, you know, it's like the collectivizing of the collectivizers, right? So this is a space for that education to happen where we can make other kinds of change. And I know the AAPI Giving Circle campaign, they would have a convening every year and bring the giving circles together so that we can learn with each other. And at some point, as Sondra mentioned, money is power, and you can think about how you are strategizing to use your funding to create power. So I wouldn't say like every giving circle has to have that as its motivation or mission. Like every giving circle is different, but you can bring together giving circles like the We Give Summit, and you could be thinking about what's a way that we could leverage this, right? And what's a way for us to leverage this kind of power? And if you have groupings, and I really like Ron's, like in Pittsburgh, you know, the foundations that are there, the giving circles, maybe you could get together and be teaching or having webinars. So those all can happen at different levels. So I just think about it as, here's an ecosystem. You don't have to do everything. There's probably somebody doing the thing that you want somebody to do already, and you just have to kind of find out where that is and maybe connect and collaborate. I like the 5 C's or the 6 C's, you know, convene, I guess, contribute, celebrate, but also collaborate, work with others. And that's been done before.
Sondra, someone did want to know what the 6 C's of giving are, and I can't remember. If you could tell me, I can put it in the chat, because I know you're opposed to chats, but I'll do it if you can tell me.
No,
and then go ahead.
I'm not opposed.
I'm teasing you. I'm teasing
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, women want to create things to make things better. They want to change things, again, to make things better. They want to commit to a cause that they really care about. They want to collaborate with other women. They want to connect. I did connect, didn't I?
Create, change, commit to a cause, collaborate, connect. Maybe
Celebrate.
that's oh, celebrate. Thank you.
Celebrate. Oh,
okay, got it. So I'm dropping it in the chat right now, and
Thank
it
you.
reminds me with Marsha Morgan, who's my sister in philanthropy, and I adore her. We and I, you know, this is the thing you guys have all heard: time, talent, and treasure. Right? As different ways that we can all get involved to collectivize our efforts to make things better. But let's add a couple: time, talent, treasure, testimony, and ties. Right? Like, who can we speak up with for? Which doors can we open? What kind of networks can we bring to bear on an issue or a cause or an organization that we support and care for? Time, talent, treasure, testimony, and ties. So I like thinking about all of those things, because it's not, treasure obviously is the money, and that's important, really important and powerful, but so are the other ways that we can be in allyship, in support of standing by our friends. Any questions? Put them in the chat, please, if you have questions for this panel, for this amazing panel. We have about 5 minutes left, and I think I'm going to ask for another lightning round. We haven't had a chance to talk too much about some of the projects that our giving circles have supported, grantee partners. So if you could think of one that comes to mind that is meaningful to you, I'll go first, because I'll buy you guys some time. Many years ago, the Asian Women Giving Circle funded a project called Q-Wave. And this was a group of young activists that wanted to integrate the official Lunar New Year parade in Chinatown to include LGBTQ people of Asian American descent. And at that time, it was illegal to be gay or queer or trans and march in that parade. So this group of young activists asked the Giving Circle, I think, for $3,000. It was a tiny grant. Of course, we said yes. And I think we paid for art supplies, beer, and cookies for this, year of planning. We marched with this group of young kids on that beautiful, bright day in February. And since that year, I think it was 2009, I want to say, since that year, that parade has been integrated to include queer, trans, gay folks, lesbians in that parade. And they beat the Irish in that regard. And for that $3,000 grant, we were their only funder who wasn't a blood relative. They were on NPR, The Times, Time Out New York. It was a total blast. So that's one of the ones that I pulled, that is one of my favorites. You're not supposed to have favorites, but of course, some rise. Any stories that you guys would like to share in our final few minutes together?
Yes, this is, go ahead,
Ron.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, we gave to a local organization called Kingsley Association, which really does things with children's programs in our community. And that was a very important factor for us to shore up that organization to continue its work to help our children in our communities. So those are the kinds of things we do. We try to find every year so we can direct our funding to help push and shore up those groups that are making opportunity.
Thank you, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Alice, did you have one, or was it Sondra? Alice, you go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sure. We give out general operating grants, so it's like we don't want to try to tie it to a project. It's like between $5,000 to $10,000. We gave it to the National Queer Asia Pacific Islander Alliance, known as INCAPIA, and they used part of it for helping promote videos or video PSAs about parents who talked about their LGBTQ kids, because a lot of this is, not just about supporting the LGBTQ API folks, but it's about the big family. It's about the community. And so, and doing this in language. So there's Tagalog, Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, Hindu. So you have PSAs that are in language that parents can actually say, oh, I get it now, because there can be sometimes a language barrier. And that's went out wide. It was in newspapers, so it's just a way. And when I don't know about you, but when you see a parent talk about their queer kid, it touches you in a different kind of way. It's like,
yeah,
well, my mother, loved me like that. So it was amazing to see that. And I get choked up about it still.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you, Alice. And we got to partner with that organization too in that project, and it's lots of tears, lots of crying for sure. Maria or Sondra, share a story, bring us home, and then we're going to say goodbye. Okay, Sondra, go ahead.
I want to share that there are 3 new Cs as a result of women's giving circles. And women are taking control of their lives, thus their philanthropy. They're gaining confidence and becoming philanthropic. And finally, they're having the courage to challenge the old ways of doing things. So I did want to share that. And
nice.
Somebody else want to close it?
Thank you. Maria.
Yes, I just want to add one story. We have many wonderful grantees, and we have been in tears in many of our grant nights, as you know, Alice and all of you know how it goes. But I remember one that we granted, I think it was $10,000 or $15,000 to Mujeres Unidas y Activas, which is a group of women in San Francisco, and they do a lot of work with undocumented women, right, who are going through domestic violence, and they have a lot of challenges in their lives. And when one of them came to present to the group, and then we made a decision that night, it was so touching just to hear how the gratitude of these women, because we believe in them, right? So it wasn't not just the $10,000, it was the meaning of that grant for that group and what they were going to do with that. And they came back to us and we have been supporting them for a while. So that's one of my favorite stories. There are
Oh, thank
many
you.
others,
So
but
many, right? I
many,
know,
many,
so
many stories.
many.
It's hard to choose one, but that's one that I keep in my mind.
Thank you, Maria. And that brings us to an end. You guys, Sondra, Maria, Ron, Alice, thank you. It's so nice to see you though through this weird medium of Zoom that we all spend too much time on. Sadi and the Philanthropy Together team, congratulations. We Give Summit. Oh my gosh, so excited. I can't wait to see the rest of the content and participate and go to your networking and pop-up giving circles and try the cocktail. Thank you for the swag. I think I'm supposed to remind everyone to please go to the forum. That's where you can find all of us. You can chat us, you can email us, you can see how to get hold of Maria on LinkedIn if you want, and how to email Sondra. And I think you're going to get an evaluation and you're really supposed to fill it out.
Okay.
That closes it out. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. See you at a later session.
Thank you.